Today's shiur begins at the Mishnah that you'll find 19 lines from the top. The first Mishnah on the page. Ha'ochel eitzel chomiv b'Yehuda shelo be'edim. If one has a meal, he spends time with his arusa, with the woman that he married. First stage of marriage is the erusin, the kiddushin, prior to the chuppah or nisuin, which consummates the marriage. And he does so in the chomiv is his father-in-law. Essentially it means that he's spending time with his arusa in Yehuda. Yehuda is the southern region of Eretz Yisrael. Shelo be'edim, and he is with her basically in seclusion. He's without witnesses. Eino yochol lito tainas besulim. He cannot, after he enters the chuppah and does the first act of bia with her, the first intimacy with her after the chuppah, he cannot exercise the tainas besulim option, because he was already in seclusion with her. And the thinking is that if he's already in seclusion with her and it is his wife, he would have already conducted intimacy. So to think that he would be able to claim after the chuppah, after the second stage that consummates the marriage, and thinking that he would have a right to say that she was already niveles, that she had intimacy with someone else, and that's why she is no longer a virgin, we would sort of laugh at him and say, hey, you were the one that created that situation of removing her virginity, because when you were with her in the erusin state in Yehuda visiting her, that's when you had intimacy. Midikotoni, from the language of the Mishnah, it said ha'ochel, one who does that in Yehuda. It must be that there are other parts in Yehuda where they don't have that custom of going to visit the arusa in her father's house in this same region of Yehuda. Omar Abaye, Shma Mina Yehuda Nami Mekoimos Yesh. So Abaye says that you see from here that within the region of Yehuda you have different practices. Namely, not only outside of Yehuda, in Golil, for example, they don't have that practice of his spending time in seclusion with his arusa before the chuppah. It is, in fact, in Yehuda itself, some practice that and some don't. Rashi says, Mekomos yesh, shecholkim b'minhagim, have different practices. V'nafka mina, the practical differences, the lo nihigi liyached, the heichad lo nihigi liyached, in those places where they don't have this custom of allowing the couple to be in seclusion, yochol liton, he would be able to make the claim, the tainas besulim claim. The Gemara continues, Kidisanya, as you see in the following source, that within Yehuda you have different practices. On the side of the Gemara we have a nosei mivneh heading, a topic heading with a structural note. The shape that you see here, a volcano shape, represents Sidra Shel Chilukei Minhagim Bein Yehuda v'Golil, a series of different practices that you find between the Yehuda region and the Golil region, B'nihugei Chosan v'Kala, Yichud, Mishmush, and Shina. We'll see what those are an allusion to as we go through the source. The Gemara, Kidisane Omer Yehuda, Yehuda, in the Yehuda region, the southern region of Eretz Yisrael, Borishona Hayu Miachtim Es Hechosan Vesakala Sho Achas Koidem Knisasan L'Chuppah. They had this practice of allowing the Chosan and Kala, the groom and the bride, to be in seclusion for a little while before entering the marriage canopy. Kadei She'liboy Gasba, so as to create a sense of arousal, additional attraction of the Chosan for the Kala. And Uba Golil lo hoyu osin kain. In Golil they didn't have that practice. Bi Yehuda Borishona hoyu mamidim lem shnei shushbinin. in the Yehuda region, originally, they used to set up two shushbinim, maybe you want to call them chaperones, or people that accompany the chosin and kala, echad loy ve'echad lo, one to accompany the chosin and one to accompany the chosin, the groom, and one to accompany the bride. Kedei lemashmesh es hachoson ve'es hakala b'shas knisoson l'chuppah. Lemashmesh means to, literally, to feel them, to check them out, to check out the chosin and check out the kala when they are entering the chuppah. In the Gola region, they didn't have that practice. Let's take a look at Rashi. Lemashmesh, lefashfesh ulemashmesh b'maasehem b'oiso halayla, to check them out and investigate the behavior of the chosin and kala that night, the wedding night. Shelo yikalkelu zeh zeh b'maasehem b'tarmis. There should be no foul play. Shelo yireh zeh dam besulim v'yabed. We're trying to investigate and avoid a situation where the chosin would see the blood of virginity and he would deliberately throw it away, destroy the evidence, so to speak, and that would give him, let's say, a basis in the eyes of the public. It would give him grounds for claiming she's not a virgin. He knew that she was. He saw blood on the sheet, the blood that is released when the virginity is broken. Vezu lo tovi mapo shiesh oleo tipe domim, and to check her out, that, let us say, she really is not a virgin anymore, and she would bring with her a sheet that has some droplets of blood on it, and claiming that she is a virgin. So we want to check both of them out to make sure that they don't practice this kind of foul play. Uvemokim shenagu lemashmesh lo noagu liyachid. Within Yehuda, where they had that practice of checking them out, so they didn't practice having them in seclusion. So that you can see that within Yehuda, some places they did have the seclusion practice, and in some places no. If you were in that kind of locale where they did have the couple in seclusion before the chuppah, my mishmush boy, of what value would there be in this checking out? Hare ein shom tainis besulim. There's no, the groom loses his chance to toain. I didn't find any besulim. Almo b'Yehuda mekomos. You see from this that within Yehuda you have different practices. We just like was pointed out by the Gemara in its diuk lashon, in its analysis of the language ha'ochel. There are places in Yehuda where they are in seclusion before the wedding night, the consummation of the wedding, that is, and there are places that they don't go into seclusion. The Gemara continues. In Yehuda, originally, chaperones would sleep in the same house as the chosin and kala. And in Gola they didn't do that. V'chol shelo noha kamina gazeh eino yochol litoin tainas besulim. And anyone who doesn't follow this practice cannot exercise the right to claim that I didn't see her virginity. I claim was not a virgin. This last phrase, what is it referring to? Ilemo aresha. If you were to say, now you see, by the way, the double underlines that you see here are explained on the side under the mivneh heading. Shlavim levarer hechakoi. These are stages to clarify where on what is the last phrase going. Hadikatani besof habrisa lo kol shelo nohag, etc. So that phrase, anyone who didn't practice this loses his rights of tainas besulim. What is that phrase going on? Ilemo aresha. If you think it's going on the Reisha, where they were in seclusion, well, if you're in a place where they're in seclusion, then you would say, Kol shenohag mi boyale. Anyone who did practice the seclusion thing would lose his right of tainas besulim. As we said before, if he was in seclusion with her before the wedding night, comes the wedding night, and he's going to claim, I didn't find her to be a virgin, we're going to say, well, you were with her in seclusion, you were the one that had the first act of intimacy with her. You can't say that she did it with someone else. Elo, Aseifa. The Seifa was the section that dealt with the Chosin and Kala being checked out. And so that it would be saying that anyone who didn't go through the checking out, so he loses his rights for Tainas Besulim. Well, if that's the case, Kol Shelo Mushmash Mi Boyale, the language should have been anyone who did not subject himself to the scrutiny of the Shushbinen will be, then in our eyes, will be suspect of maybe there was Besulim, he threw it away, and therefore he cannot Tainas Besulim. So the language should have been Kol Shelo Mushmash, anyone who did not subject himself to the checking out. Omar Abaye Lo'olam Aresha. This last phrase of the source is going really back on the beginning of the source. Utni, and you should say, Kol Shenohag. Anyone who practiced the Yichud before the Chuppah will not be able to Tainas Besulim. Omar Le Rava, V'ha Kol Sheloi Nohag Kotani. But the language is in the negative. Anyone who did not practice is what it said. Elo Omar Rava, Hachi Komar. Kol Shelo Nohag Minhag. Now notice Rava's rereading is does preserve the negative. Kol Shelo Nohag Minhag Golil B'Golil. Anyone who did not practice the Golil way in Golil, Elo Minhag Yehuda B'Golil. Rather, he did the seclusion thing in Golil. Eino Yocholito in Tainas Besulim. So he loses his right to the Tainas Besulim. Like we said, we'll tell him, well, you were with her in private before the wedding night, so you were the one that caused her loss of Besulim. Rav Ashi Omar Li'olam Aseifa. He prefers to attach that phrase of Kol Shelo Nohag on the Seifa Utni and restate the language as follows: Kol Shelo Mushmash. That anyone who wasn't checked out, he will lose the chance to Tainas Besulim. The Mishnah continues. We might want to read first the topic heading. We're going to see in the Gemara the following: Minig Bezdin Shel Kehanim Ligvois Dalid Meyazuz LeBesula. This Mishnah deals with how much is written into the Ksuba document, the financial marriage guarantee document that every bride receives. What is the sum of money written in? So in the Gemara we're going to see that there was a custom of the priestly courts, the Bezdin Shel Kehanim, to jack up the price of the ksuba. If you're marrying a girl that's father's a kohen, you'll have to pay her on the occasion of divorce or widowhood 400 zuz instead of the 200 zuz for a standard basula. So now the Mishnah. Achas almonas Yisrael v'achas almonas kohenim ksubasa mona. Whether it be a widow from a non-kohen family or a widow of a kohen family, the ksuba is 100 zuz. Bezdin shel kehanim yigoivin lebesula arba mea zuz v'lo michu b'yodam chachomim. The kohen courts used to charge or collect for a basula, a daughter of a kohen that was married would be, and if she was a virgin when she got married, she would receive 400 zuz. And the sages did not protest to the practice of the kohen courts. The Rashi says at the bottom, the daughter of the Kohen when she would marry a Kohen, and all the more so when she is going down, so to speak, a level. She's not marrying a Kohen, but rather marrying a Yisrael. All the more so that Yisrael is, we'll say, is very privileged to receive a Bas Kohen, so let him pay for it. The Gemara. Tona. V'almonas kohanim ksuboso mosayim. We have a brisa that says the almona, the widow from a Kohen family, she's a Bas Kohen, she would receive a ksuba of 200. Well, that's not what we learned in the Mishnah. The widow who's a Bas Kohen would receive only 100, like all other almonas when they remarry. So how do you square away the brisa that speaks about 200 with our Mishnah that speaks about an almonas Kohen 100? Omar Rashi shtei takonos havu. Rashi points out that there were two rulings that were in addition to we'll call the basic law. Meikora tokinu lebsula arba meyazuz ulamona mona. Originally, there was established that a Bas Kohen besula would receive 400, and the almona Bas Kohen would receive 100. And we want to point out that this is not a takona regarding the almona. Regarding the almona, that's not a new ruling. That's standard fare, where almonas receive 100, and all almonas, including the Bas Kohen. Now, there's halachic development. We continue at the top of Omid Beis. Kevon de chazu de mezalzeli bahu, when it was perceived that the almonas were treated lightly. Rashi says at the top, the mezalzeli bahu ba'almonas kalas beineim lotzion mebeshik subosim muetes. It wouldn't cost the man too much if he wanted to divorce her. So, from some insignificant grounds, he would find an excuse to divorce her, figuring he's not going to lose too much money on it. So the widows who had remarried were treated lightly in the eyes of their second husbands, because the ksuba was mu'etis, was a small quantity of money, 100 says. Takinu lehu mosan. So they instituted that the almonas of kohanim should receive 200. Dignai hoyolahen, it's not fitting, it's beneath their dignity. The alphapi shalmonas Yisrael nami ksubas and mona, even though the ksuba of almonas Yisrael, regular widows, was also 100. Miu kohanim chashivi tfei. Kohanim occupy a higher status. Uknai lohem girushay benosem yosim Yisrael. And as they say, the higher you go, the harder you fall. And being that they had a higher status when they were divorced, it was considered a greater indignity to the kahuna, and therefore they didn't want it to be so easy to divorce the almona Bas Kohen. However, that was the first stage of new ruling, to establish a 200 ksuba for the almonas Kohen. Kevon de chazu de parshin minayu. We see the Gemara continues that when it was noticed that men folk, seeing that to marry an almonas Kohen they'd have to pay 200, they said, we don't want to marry them. Parshin means they separated themselves and they stayed away, they distanced themselves from them. The Amri, figuring adinasvinon almonas Kohanim, instead of marrying an almonas Kohen which will cost us 200 zuz, nasal nasib b'sula bas Yisrael, might as well benefit by having a virgin Bas Yisrael. It costs the same thing, the 200 zuz, which was standard fare for Kesubos of Benos Yisrael. So now, after having raised the Kesubos of Almonas Kohanim to 200, they saw that had backfired. Adrinu l'milsayo, they reinstated the original 100. So the two sources that we saw at the bottom of Amud Aleph, our Mishnah and the Brisa, were simply referring to different times in the historical development of almonos of Kesubos of almonos kayin. Bezin shel kehanim b'chulei. Omar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel lo bezin shel kehanim bilvad Amru. This is not limited to the courts of the kehanim. Elafilu mishpachas hamiyuchasos b'Yisrael. Even families of pure genealogy. When we say miyuchasos, one should understand these are families that don't have problems of mamzerus in their background, or mamzerus is illegitimacy or slavery. They're miyuchasos. They have pure genealogy. They have so even those kind of families, imrotzu lasos kederach shakayin and moisim, if they should decide to up the ksuba of their daughters, they could do so as well. And the idea being that it's a privilege. One would pay for the privilege of marrying a woman who has this clean, pure background. Meisvei, we raise an objection to Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. One who wants to practice like the Kohanim did, this idea of raising the ksuba value or cost, they could go on. And what are the examples? And here we have to pay attention to the specific examples. Bas Yisrael l'Kohen, ubas Kohen l'Yisrael, oisin. So in a case where there's a marriage between a non-Kohen and a Kohen, so it can be done. And we infer, Bas Yisrael l'Kohen, ubas Kohen l'Yisrael, hu di'ikot tzad kahuna. In the two examples cited, there was an element of kahuna. Avo Bas Yisrael l'Yisrael lo. But a daughter of a non-Kohen marrying a man who's a non-Kohen, no, there's no upping of the ksuba. The Gemara says, Lo mibaya komar. The source that we just read is to be read in the Lo mibaya fashion or structure, which will become very clear. But just keep note, what's the main point? We're preserving Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel right now. Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel said that a family of miyuchasos can also demand, when their Bas Yisrael Miyucheses marries a Yisrael, they can also up the ksuba. They can tell the fellow, look, you're marrying our daughter, she's Miyucheses, we want you to write into the ksuba 400 zuz. And that halacha is true, even though we have this source. Why? Because this source is in the Lo Mibaya fashion. Lo Mibaya, I don't have to tell you, Bas Yisrael Yisrael, that they can insist on a raised value ksuba. The lo motzi omar law, the chassan cannot tell her, when he himself is a Yisrael, he can't tell her, aluye kam alinon loich, I'm raising you, by your marrying me, you're gaining a higher status. We're on the same level. So in a case like that, it's kind of obvious that if she's miyucheses and they want to raise the ksuba to 400, they can do that. Avol, but there's another case which I might have thought otherwise, and that's why the source had to clarify it. Avol Bas Yisrael l'Kohen, where you have a Bas Yisrael marrying a Kohen, the Motzi Omar law, where you might have thought he could tell her, what, you expect me to pay you a higher ksuba? You're marrying me, I'm a Kohen, you're only a Bas Yisrael. Aluye kamalinon lech. By marrying me, you are rising up in status, and I'm not gonna pay you 400 zuz. Amolo, I would have thought maybe because he has that counterclaim that they couldn't practice an increased ksuba in the case of a Bas Yisrael marrying a Kohen. Kamash Malon. That's why we need this Tanaic source to tell us that in that case as well, even though she's a Bas Yisrael and he is a Kohen, the fact that she's gaining this increased status is not enough reason for him, the Kohen, not to write into the ksuba the raised 400 zuz amount. Now we begin a series of Mishnayos, and on the side of the Gemara, under the Mivneh Haying, under the structural note, the crown shape appears. Sidro Shloisha Mishnayos. There's a series of, or Sholosh Mishnayos, a series of 3 Mishnayos. Shebahem Cholkin Rabban Gamliel Rebbe Ozer Mul Rabbi Yoshua, where you see a joint effort on the part of Rabban Gamliel and Rebbe Ozer against Rabbi Yoshua. Im Hamin Leisha Betanasa, whether to believe a woman in her claims. We'll see in these Mishnayos, the couple gets married, the husband claims one thing, and she challenged him, she claims something else, and all of this, of course, is in the realm of his having expected her to be a virgin, and it turns out that she is something else. The Mishnah. A man marries a woman and he does not find her to be a virgin. He omeres misherastani nenasti v'nistach v'sodeu. She claims, right, I'm not a virgin, but you still will owe me the full 200 zuz because I was raped after the erusin. When we first married, when you offered me the money in exchange for my acceptance of the money in order to marry you, at that point I was still a virgin. Right now, when the chuppah night comes, consummation night comes, you find me to be a non-virgin. That's all true, but that's because I was raped after you married me, and it's your loss. Without translating it literally, means it's your loss. Omer Loki, and he says back, not so. Your intimacy causing your loss of virginity was before I married you. And it's all one big mistake. I expected a besula, and it turns out you're not that. I am not paying you anything. Rabban Gamliel, Rabbi Eliezer, Omer, they both say ne'emenes. She is believed. Now, Rashi adds what we are to think at this point. In other words, when Rashi says "Kosalka daitach," like he does 4 lines from the top, you realize that this mode of thought is going to change later in the Gemara. But the thinking right now is that she has a claim of certainty. She knows what happened to her body, and he doesn't have that same level of certainty. So it's called Bori. Bori means clear, definitive, versus Shema, versus something that's doubtful. And when you have a claim of Bori v'Shema, they are of the opinion that the Bori, the clear claim, the claim made with certainty, wins out. So she will win out, and she'll get her ksuba. Rabbi Yoshua Omer, lo mipi anuchai, we don't live by her mouth, we don't live by her words. Elo harezu becheskas beula ad shelo tisares v'hit osoi. Rather, she is considered having been part of intimacy before the erusin, and she tricked him, leading him to believe that she was still a besula when she wasn't. Until she brings proof to what she is claiming, namely that she lost her virginity after she was already married to this man, to the husband. The Gemara opens up with a discussion that doesn't seem to be related to the issues dealt with in the Mishnah, but as we go on in the Gemara, you will see how things do get connected. We glance at the side under the nosei, the topic heading, Monoli biotcha. Mr. A claims that Mr. B owes him money. Monoli means Mon is $100 of mine are in your hands, meaning you owe me $100. Valo Omer Eini Yodeh, and the other one says, oh, I don't know. So how do we look at that? So on the one hand, Bori v'Shema. As we learned in the Mishnah, we made an allusion to Rashi's comment that here you see someone with a claim of certainty. I know you owe me 100, and you have the other guy, the Shema, saying, I don't know. It's a statement of doubt. So how do we rule in a case like that? So if you rule in favor of the claimer. That means you hold that in Bori V'Shema, that Bori Odif. Odif means better. That it's a better claim, and it's so much better that he is entitled to collect money, to, in effect, remove the money from its current state, its current presence, its current status. Meaning, to remove it from B, from the possession of B, and have it transferred to the possession of A. There's another approach. When you have a situation of Mr. A claiming money from Mr. B, one might say, Uki mamona b'cheskas marei. Establish the money in its owner's possession. Who is the current owner of the money? Well, the one who's holding on to it, the one in whose wallet it is found, or the one in whose bank account it is located. He is the one that has the chazaka. He has the possession of it. And the issue is, can a strong claim be grounds for removing it from its current status? So this approach says, Uki mamona b'cheskas marei, means that a claim, though it's a claim with certainty, it's not strong enough to have a status change, a chazaka change. The Gemara, Itmar, mono li biyodcha. Mr. A claims from Mr. B, you owe me 100. V'alo omer, Mr. B responds, Eini yodeh, I'm not sure about that. Rabbi Yehuda, Rav Huna Amri, they together say, Chayav, he has to pay. The fellow who claimed he didn't know, too bad, you don't know. The other one has a solid claim, a claim made of certainty, so you have to pay. Rav Nachman, Rav Yochanan Amri, potter, that he is exempt. Mr. B does not have to pay. And the Gemara now explains, Rav Huna of Rav Yehuda Amri, they both say Chayav, Bori V'Shema, Bori Odif. When you have one claim made with certainty and the other claim from a position of doubt, the claim of Bori, of certainty, wins out. Rav Nachman, Rav Yochanan Amri, Pater, that Mr. B is exempt from paying. Uki mamona b'cheskas marei. We maintain the money in the possession of the owner, and that pushes off a tainas Bori. Note that as we go on in the Gemara, is a long point. Omar le Abaye le Rav Yosef. Ha de Rav Huna of Rav Yehuda, that which they held that he's chayav to pay, that the tainas Bori is stronger. Dishmuel he. That's in light of or following the ruling of Shmuel. Desnan. What we do now is we present a Tanaic source, and following the Tanaic source, Shmuel's name will appear. So the Mishnah says, it's a Mishnah later on, Hoisa Muberes, a woman comes to us, pregnant, the Omru law, and we ask the woman, Ma Tivo Shel Ubarzeh, what's the nature of this child in terms of, is he a kosher Jew, or is he questionable? So she says, Mi'ish Ploni V'Kohenhu, the pregnancy that I am carrying with me right now is from a person that's miyuchas. The word V'Kohen is a we'll say a borrowed expression, or is an illustrative expression of those who are of pure genealogical background. No problem of mamzerus or avdus in their history. So she claims, the child that I'm carrying, you don't have to worry, he's got a clean record. Rabbi Gamliel, Reb Lezer Omrim, Nemenes. And these two Tanoim give her credibility. She is to be believed. The Omer of Yudamar Shmuel, Halacha ke Rabbi Gamliel. Shmuel says, and we will rule like Rabbi Gamliel. The Omer le Shmuel bar Yehuda, the Rav Yehuda. Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda says to Rav Yehuda, Shinana. Shinana means wise one, sharp one. Amrislon mishmei de Shmuel. You, Rav Shmuel, Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda says to Rav Yehuda, you told us Amr Slon Mishmei de Shmuel. Don't confuse, by the way, this gentleman, Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda, with the original Shmuel. It's different people. So Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda says to Rav Yehuda, you told us in the name of Shmuel, Halacha ki Rabbi Gamliel af borishona. The halacha shall follow Rabbi Gamliel even in the first case. The first case is a reference to the Tevias Ksuba, where a woman is placing a claim to get paid her Ksuba. We saw this in our Mishnah, where she's claiming she has a Ksuba coming to her, and he's saying back, no, you were already a non-basula before you ever married me. My afbo rishona. What is the point that's being made over here, that the halacha will follow Rabbi Gamliel even in this case? The Gemara explains, Afagav di'iko lemeimar uki mamona b'cheskas marei. Even though one could have said that we leave the money in the possession of its owner, that is, the husband. Even so, Amar Rabbi Gamliel bori adif. Rabbi Gamliel still gives more power to the claim of bori, the claim made with confidence, with certainty, namely her claim. She knows what happened to her body, and she will get the 200 zuz. The Gemara continues, Leima Rav Yehuda v'Rav Huna the Amri Rabbi Gamliel, Rav Nachman v'Rabbi Yochanan the Amri Rabbi Yoshua. Can we say this? Can we line up the different Amoroyim that we saw at the beginning of the sugya with the two schools of thought we found in the Tanoim? Then we'll spell things out. Rav Yehuda and Rav Huna, they said, in the case of Moni Li B'Yodcha, and the other one said back Eini Yodea, they said Bori Adif. So shall we say that these Amoroyim fit into the thought of Rabban Gamliel? Remember, he's the one that we just got finished saying that holds the Tainas Bori. Her Tainas Bori is stronger than the Cheskas Momon that the husband has, and she can get her 200. So that in the case with the loan, the claimed money, and their ruling would parallel the ruling of Rabbi Gamliel with the woman and her claims on the Ksuba. And similarly, for Rav Nachman, Rav Yochanan, who in the loan claim above, they said that even though the fellow said, I don't know, he nevertheless maintains a hold on his money because of this Cheskas Momon was the stronger factor. It overpowered the Tainas Bori that was raised against him. So Rav Nachman and Rav Yochanan, that give credence or power to the Cheskas Momon, the Amri Rabbi Yeshua, they seem to rule then like Rabbi Yeshua, where Rabbi Yeshua said in the case of the Ksuba, the husband maintains his holding on the money, and he's not going to pay her based on his feeling that it was a mekach tos. Omar loch Rav Nachman. Now, before we go on, those of you who are relatively new to Gemara learning, you should be aware that it's not a comfortable position for an Amora to be locked into only one Shita of Tanoim and not be able to fit in or conform to the other Shita of Tanoim. When you have several Tanoim on a given topic, Amoroyim that speak want to feel that their position can fit into all of the Tanoim, those great scholars that preceded them in the Tanaic period. So an Amora, when he says something, he wants to feel that his statement is something that could be accepted by the previous Tanoim. The way we set things up in the Layma, the line before with the Layma question, shall we say everything we did, that limits the Amoroyim to fit each one only into one school of Tanaic thought, And as we say, that's not a comfortable position. Omar loch Rav Nachman. So Rav Nachman will tell you, Ano di Amri afilu ke Rabbi Gamliel. What I said is something even Rabbi Gamliel would go along with. I said that the cheskas mamon is stronger. That was in the case of the loan, fellow claiming you owe me money, and the other one said I don't know. So Rav Nachman will tell you that true, in that case, the guy that said any of that will maintain his hold on the money. That's something even Rav Gamliel would agree with. Ad kan lo komer Rav Gamliel hasam. Up till now, Rav Gamliel says what he does over there by the woman that she is believed. Ella, and notice there's a number 1 here. There's another explanation later on this line. Why is she believed? 1, de'ika migu. Her claim has an additional level of strength. In general, Rabbi Gamliel would say a cheskas mamon will win over a simple taina of bori, just like I said. However, the woman has an extra level of strength in her claim. She has a migu. Rashi explains that. We'll look at that very shortly. Avol hacha, in the case of the tovea of the money, the loan money, my migu ika. What is the creditor? What migu does the creditor have? He doesn't have a migu taina. He doesn't have a claim with this boosted strength. Boosted strength claim, and therefore even Rabbi will agree that leave the money where it is. Now let's take a look at Rashi. Elo de'ika migu kagon, and what we see in this, there are. Rashi right now is quoting 2 Mishnayos. One we've seen and one's an upcoming Mishnah. And in these Mishnayos, there's an argument between the husband and the wife. And Rav Gamliel sides with the lady's claim in both Mishnayos. And what Rashi does is he goes through the 2 Mishnayos and shows how she has a booster, a emboldened claim, a stronger claim than the husband, because she has this migu aspect to it. And we haven't explained till now what migu is. But the framework of migu basically is that you should believe me in what I'm saying now, because I could have put in a better claim that you wouldn't have been able to refute. So believe me in what I'm claiming now, because I would have had a real winning claim if I really wanted to. So that gives her credibility in what she's saying right now. Now Rashi explains, Kagon misherastani nenasti, the claim that she makes in our Mishnah, that the reason you don't find me to be absul is because I was raped after you already married me. Ukagon, and then the next Mishnah where she says he omers mukas eitani, after he claims you're not a basula, so she says to him, yeah, but that's because I'm a mukas eitz. I was afflicted. I was hit by a piece of wood, and we discussed this in our previous shiur, the idea of mukas eitz. The Amrinon, we say as follows: Migu di baya taina toana taina malyasa. Since migu means since. If I wanted to, I could have, or if she wanted to, she could have made a stronger claim, mehach, than that which she is saying right now. So, since she opts to advance the weaker of 2 claims, knowing that she could have put in a stronger claim, we believe her with what she's saying. Kagon, Gabi Mishirastani Nenasti, our Mishnah, where she claims, yes, that's true, I'm not a basula, but that's because after I was married to you, I was raped. That, with regard to that case, Havatana, she could have said, Mukazeitani, Taina Malyasa. She could have said something even better, more favorable for herself, claiming Right, you didn't find me to be a basula. That's because I was a mukas eitz. And why is mukas eitz better for her? The lo posla nafsha mikuna. She's not disqualifying herself from ultimately or eventually marrying a Kohen. And she's saying, I was raped after I was already married to you. She's disqualifying herself from eventually ever marrying a Kohen. She's limiting her potential mates later on. The rule is that a married woman that was raped becomes forbidden to the kahuna. Therefore, in our Mishnah, Rabbi Gamliel says she has such a wonderful claim because she could have said something even more beneficial to herself, and she opted not to do so. So believe her. Rashi continues, V'gabi hi omeres mukas eitzani. This is a Mishnah on the next Omer on Yud Gimel Omer Aleph, where she says, I was a mukas eitz. Ibaya Omra, she could have said, mukas eitzani tachtecha. I lost my virginity because I was smitten by a piece of wood, or I experienced some penetration of a foreign substance into my body while I was already married to you. Visla Mosan. And a claim like that would have entitled her to a full ksuba of 200 zuz. Meaning, at the point she was got married to him, nothing had happened to her. What happened to her, though, took place after she was married to him. So since at the time she was married, she was a basula, she would be entitled to 200 zuz. And she says, Mukas eitzani kaidim lachein v'ein li elamona. And she says, you should believe me, therefore, in what I'm saying now, that I was a mukas eitz before I married you, and therefore I have a ksuba of 100 coming to me. Where the husband, is tining, you claim you're a mukas eitz. No, you were niveles. You were participatory in intimacy before I married you. So what we have just done now through the Rashi is understood Rav Nachman's point of view that in general a controversy over money matters would be settled through looking at the Cheskas Mamon. Where is the money right now? Who is the current possessor of it? As far as the Mishnayos are concerned, and Rabbi Gamliel, Rav Nachman says Rabbi Gamliel can see things my way, that in general we go Basar Cheskas Mamon. We follow where the thing is right now. However, in the Mishnayos where we see the woman winning over the man, according to Rav Gamliel, and effectively removing the money from him, transferring it to her based on her claims, that's because she has a super bolstered claim that we explained in the Rashi through a migu. Believe her in what she's saying now, because she could have, if she was just trying to get away with things, she could have made a stronger claim. Let's continue in the Gemara. Inami Ad Kan Lo Koma Rabbi Gamliel Hasam. Another approach to enable Rav Nachman to fit into Rabbi Gamliel is as follows: that up till now Rav Gamliel did not say what he did, that she is believed Elo De'amrinon Uk Mo Achazoka. She has her own given status, meaning she was born as a basula. She was a regular baby. She was born as a basula. So she's able to enjoy that status over his claims that she is not. We look at Rashi, Ukma Achazoka, Misafkalon Ashas Erusin. We are confronted with this doubt regarding what was her status at the point of marriage, the initial stage of marriage, the Erusin. Ibasula Havoy, if she was a basula, and he would then be bound to pay her in the event of a divorce or widowhood 200, or ibu'ulo havoy, or maybe she was a bula at the time of erusin. A bula meaning she already had intimacy beforehand. Hameid isha acheskasa ubasula nolda. You have a doubt, so you go according to her known previous status. She was born as a basula. V'hach hashtahu de isnisa achar erisin. And as far as her current non-basula status, is because she was isnisa, oinus. She was raped after she married this fellow. The time of marriage, though, he created a chov, a financial obligation of the full 200 due to a basula. So as Rav Nachman explains, that Rabbi Gamliel's believing her, enabling her, entitling her to her ksuba claim is because she had a chazaka of being a basula. Avohacha, but in the case of the loan, the claimed money, my chazaka is leilahai. What chazaka does the tovea, the claimer, have? He doesn't have some kind of pre-established status entitling him to the money. So what have we done so far? We have shown that Rav Nachman is who is an Amora, and his point of his ruling above of Uki Mamona B'Cheskas Marei is something that even Rabban Gamliel could agree with. Hachi Nami Misaber. Here the Gemara starts a point that takes us down to 4 lines from the top of Yud Gimel Amud Aleph to the end of the Gemara. He says that this is also likely Kidem Shaninan, as we have answered to Rav Nachman, who Diyamak Ramliel, that Rav Nachman conforms to Rav Gamliel, that we can, in the case of the Monoli B'Yadcha and the other fellows saying Eini Yodea, we would rule that the Eini Yodea guy keeps his money, and that same Rav Nachman would agree with Rav Gamliel regarding the woman's claims against her husband in these Mishnayos that we've seen. The Gemara continues at the top of Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. Di'im Kain, if Dim Kain means if Rav Nachman could not be established to hold like Rav Gamliel, we would then have a problem in Psak Halach. Dim Kain Kashya Hilchasa Ahilchasa. We'd have a contradiction in how to go about halachic rulings. The Kaimalon, we have a rule, Hilchasok Rav Nachman Badini, that when Rav Nachman goes up against someone else and argues regarding financial matters, we follow Rav Nachman's ruling. Badini has to do with primarily with financial related matters. We follow Rav Nachman. Ubeha, and in our sugya regarding the woman and her claims for the ksuba, Rav Yudamar Shmuel Halach Gamliel. We know that we will rule like Rav Gamliel, who says that she is believed when she says Mishay Rastani Nenasti. So we know that we rule like Rav Nachman in financial matters, and we know with regard to the ksuba, which is also a realm of financial concern, we rule like Rav Gamliel. Rather, we therefore have to conclude, we ought to conclude that Rav Nachman is one and the same with Rav Gamliel, as we already explained. And with that in mind, then we don't have a contradiction in terms of how to go about paskening halachas. Namely, by paskening like Rav Yudam or Shmuel said that we go like Rav Gamliel, that is something that Rav Nachman would go along with as well.